In today's episode of Entreprenetics, I'm going to discuss the concept of nuance. In this case, it's the art of the nuance. One of the things I've learned as a soccer player, an athlete, and venture capitalist is that there are certain people, certain players that not only understand the fundamentals, but they escalate in performing at a high level because of the nuance factor. So let me talk to you about what I consider nuance. If you look at a function, if you look at a y-x curve, and you look at the x component as time, as a function of time, and this part is knowledge. One of the things I learned from my father, and when we were little, we're teenagers, actually younger than that, he used to teach us the fundamentals of being a great soccer player. And obviously one of them was passing correctly. Like even today I'll see professionals that don't know how to snap that ball. They don't know how to make that pass crisp. And they don't know how to do it really quickly where you barely see it. And even today I'm able to do that because he really spent hours teaching us the fundamentals of how to pass the ball. What happens is that when you learn the fundamentals of anything, usually you have to obviously use repetition to practice, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes in the beginning. But what the cool thing about your brain is that your brain is going to forget about all the mistakes you've made. That's what's so awesome, and it's going to remember the successful attempts at learning the fundamentals. So what we used to do is he used to teach us how to snap the ball and pass the ball, and after a while you get better and better through practice, and then there's a certain point where you've mastered the craft, and that's what we did. But what happens is that when you master the craft of fundamentals, obviously your knowledge increases. So now if you look at it, your knowledge is increasing, so you're going up the F curve, the fundamental curve. And then at this point, when you really reach full understanding of the fundamentals, you start dealing with the concept of nuance. And the concept of nuance is an example in soccer. When you learn how to snap the ball, now what you can learn is how to do a chip. You can chip the ball so perfectly over players, either for a great pass, or you can chip it right over the keeper's head where they can barely touch the ball and just see it go over him. There's nothing they can do but watch the ball go into the net. And so what happens is that whether it's soccer, baseball, football, American football, it's all the same principles. And same thing goes in terms of, for instance, designing a product. There are certain fundamental things that you should know about design that's going to enable you to just tweak it right. So what happens is nuance is all about those slight modifications in the fundamentals that make it absolutely magic. You can see it in a great quarterback as they're rolling out of the pocket and they're throwing the ball while everybody's chasing them, and he just throws it perfectly for an oncoming wide receiver to catch the ball. Or when you see someone like Messi dribbling through players only to chip the ball over the keeper without breaking stride. It looks so easy, but it's so difficult because they made slight variations to the fundamentals that make him world class. You can study any world class talent in any field, and that's what happens. But here's the magic of the function when you're dealing with fundamentals versus nuance. So what happens is most people spend months, weeks, months, years developing, learning the fundamentals in whatever field that is. So their knowledge increases up to this point, and then as it increases, it's going at probably a little bit of a slower rate because you're dealing with nuance, because nuance is very difficult to execute and incorporate, because unless you have the fundamental component of it, you're never going to get there. I cannot teach you to do fancy soccer moves in dribbling, which is one of my expertise, unless I teach you the fundamentals of dribbling. It's not going to happen. And I've seen people trying to learn the fundamentals the nuance aspect of it before they learn the fundamentals. So what happens usually is that great players, they learn the fundamental component, and then as they get to the top of that hill, to the top of the achievement, sometimes, whatever reason, a lot of times it's psychological, they think they've made it. I've made it, now I can relax a little bit, when in reality that's not the time to relax. So someone may dip a little bit, and then what you see is something miraculous happen. This actually has happened to me as well in my soccer career. When I would reach a certain plateau of achievement, I think, I made it now, I can probably psychologically relax. And then my level of play, maybe because I'm not practicing enough, maybe because I'm not focused on fundamentals on a daily basis, kind of decreases a little bit. And then you remember what got you there. The fundamentals got you there. This is why you have all great coaches in every team sport focus on fundamentals. And so what happens is you go back to learning the fundamentals during your dip, and then you go up again. And this is how it all plays out. If you look at great athletes in any sport, as they evolve, they always happen to get to the nuance factor, which makes them world class and makes them perform better. And then they fine tune their play based on maybe age. Because as you grow older, maybe you can't run as fast, you can't dribble as fast, maybe you have to use your brain more, your intellect. So you'll see great players in many sports change their nuance aspect of it, but they still go back to the fundamentals. But what happens is the ones that stay a long time, they just keep going back up. And that's what's so important. If I can get you to understand anything, is that the correlation between fundamentals and nuance. And it's an up and down game. And what you have to remember is that if you're ever struggling in going back, or maybe you're dipping in a way, and you want to go back to where you were before and higher, you have to go back in learning the fundamentals. And once you go back, and what's going to happen is that at this level, if I'm at this level, this is what's so magical. At this level, when I'm here, and I've got a little dip, and I'm learning the fundamentals at this point, you see the fundamentals in a different way. Because what you've done is you've accumulated a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience. And so now you are learning the fundamentals at a different point of knowledge. And that's inspiring, because now you're seeing the even fundamentals in a different way. For instance, today, when I'm teaching kids to play soccer, as I teach them the fundamentals of kicking the ball, I see it differently. Like I see it like my father used to see it. Now I truly understand, God rest his soul, why he could explain to us fundamentals in such a way where it was so simple. And when you get to the point of fundamentals playing with nuance at a high level, true magic happens. And this is the magic that my father taught me. Simplicity. Everything looks simple and easy. Until next time.